Have you ever wondered what the top reasons for getting a divorce are? Hi, I'm Gerald Maggio, Southern California divorce and family law attorney. And in this video, I'm going to explain the top 10, yes, top 10 reasons why some marriages end in divorce. Understanding those reasons in your situation may lead to help save your own marriage and avoid divorce. Number 1, infidelity. I think that's an obvious one for many people. That's a situation where one spouse has been cheating on another. The distinction is you can have a one-night stand situation. You can also have a long-term extramarital affair going on that you had no idea of. And in your situation, you have to decide what is worth working on to save your marriage and what is an ender of your marriage. Number 2, communication breakdown. This is a situation where over a period of time, the parties stop being able to communicate with each other, which can lead to misunderstandings, miscommunications, and resentment because of the lack of communication. This is something though that can be fixed, and parties can work on that by talking honestly with each other, maybe getting a therapist involved, but they have to recognize the problem and do something about it. Number 3, financial issues. This is a big one that I see oftentimes in divorce cases where their parties have financial problems, oftentimes because of financial irresponsibility, and one party, somebody's just charging up a lot in credit card bills, lives a lifestyle that's out of the means of the parties, and that can cause a lot of resentment. It's also a situation where somebody in the marriage is underemployed, doesn't want to work. That could be the husband or wife, and that can lead to situations of resentment. And altogether, that leads to, in the long term, a situation that is a powder keg of a marital problem that the parties really need to work on, but that can be difficult to overcome. Number 4, lack of intimacy. This is a problem that oftentimes happens in a long-term marriage where the amount of intimacy decreases over time, where there are oftentimes weeks, months, years, or many years in which there is a lack of intimacy between the parties. And at some point, I often see that other spouse that desires the intimacy says, I've had enough, I want this in my life, I want intimacy, I can't live like this anymore. It's important to recognize that, to not let your marriage get to that point, or otherwise the other spouse is just going to say, I've had enough. And I've seen it in many of my cases. Number 5, incompatibility. Sometimes people get married, they don't necessarily understand their values together, they don't have the same views on things, and they overlook them when they are in the early part of their relationship, sometimes get married and so on. And as time goes on, they can realize that they don't have the same values, the same beliefs, and so on. Sometimes the parties can use that to their benefits, the opposites attract situation, but it can also, in many instances, be a situation where it's difficult for the parties to overcome that as time goes on. And so that's a hard one to fix, but it also depends on your perspective and what you want out of your marriage. Number 6, substance abuse. I think this is an obvious one. What I'm talking about is usually alcohol abuse or drug use, and that could be prescription drug abuse. It can be controlled substances like marijuana, cocaine, you name it. That can be a problem in marriages, obviously for obvious reasons, where it can get out of control. It becomes an addiction. It becomes something that is negatively impacting the marital relationship to a point where it impacts the very being of the marriage. And so that is something that can be dealt with therapy and counseling, but that requires that both parties be on the same page regarding that, particularly the one that's abusing. Number 7, domestic violence or abuse. This is a big one. This is a situation where I oftentimes file for divorce and have to file for a restraining order because some relationship in a marriage has led to the point where there's been repeated abuse, and at the point of filing for divorce, there's been an instance that's been really kind of like the last straw here, and the victim says, I can't live my life like this anymore, and they file for divorce, and they file at the same time for a restraining order because they need to get out of an unhealthy relationship. Number 8, growing apart. This is another situation kind of tied into the lack of intimacy situation where the parties have grown apart. The parties might have different interests, different desires, different things that they want, that over time, if it's not dealt with, the parties don't try to do things together, try to keep that spark alive, keep that intimacy alive, keep their interests having fun together. If that goes on over a long period of time, is not addressed, that usually leads to a divorce, because by the time somebody files for divorce, they've reached the point of no return. They don't want to be with that person anymore. So this is something you've got to stem earlier on to avoid divorce. Number 9, unrealistic expectations. This is a situation where one spouse may have unrealistic expectations to the point where they expect their spouse, their marriage, to be the source of their happiness. And if things are not going well in that way, then nothing else is worth it, and they don't want to be, that can lead to a divorce. Those marriages that don't have high expectations, that have more reasonable expectations, are generally the ones that tend to be the most successful. And finally, number 10, lack of conflict resolution skills. What we're talking about here is where the parties don't have an ability to resolve their conflicts. All marriages have problems, all marriages have issues, and if the parties don't have the skills, the abilities to work out resolution, a fight can lead to something worse. It builds up and it leads to a situation that leads to divorce. The most successful marriages are the ones that recognize, deal with the problems. They may fight, they may argue, but that brings it out in the open, and at the end of the day, hopefully they're resolving them, and those are the most successful marriages that survive. You know, divorce should always be a last resort for people. You should see what you can do about resolving your problems, and you can see that there's a lot of reasons for divorce. The important thing is that if you can recognize these problems and work on them, you can save your marriage. Fortunately, I oftentimes deal with people that are at the end of the road and have let these problems get to the point where they don't want to be married anymore. You can take my advice on this, and hopefully this will help in your situation. I'm Gerald Maggio, Southern California divorce and family law attorney. If you're going through a divorce or you know somebody who is, please contact us for a free consultation where we can go through your situation, give you a roadmap of where things go, hopefully navigate your divorce case amicably and without a lot of conflict, spending a lot of money. That's what we're here for. If you like this video, feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel at the end of this video for more helpful information about divorce and family law issues. See you next time.